And welcome back for part 2 of this Leo new moon solar eclipse. This will be the update for the Divine Connection Collective that's based on what I just shared with the Lightworker energy update for this Leo new moon solar eclipse taking place at that 20th degree of Leo, with some fun aspects, mainly from Saturn planetarily, but a whole bunch of fun different asteroids outside of that. I'm going to strongly recommend that you take a listen to that Lightworker lunar update because it had a theme and a through line that will help you understand what's happening in your connection, whether you identify in some format of union or some format of separation. That through line will help you understand why you're seeing what you're seeing as you listen to this and why I'm interpreting this in the ways that I am. There's absolutely a huge resurrection of self with a new moon solar eclipse. These are new beginning energies in the sign that deals with self autonomy, self authority, personal empowerment, and our capacity to integrate our own inner child and our own creativity. With that being said, let's dive into some of the energies impacting Juno, the divine feminine energy at this Leo new moon solar eclipse. We do see Juno is conjunct Pluto there. Pluto's lingered in Aquarius. Juno has now taken her second pass at Pluto. She crossed over to get into Aquarius. She's crossed back to get back into Capricorn. And she will cross a third time to get back into Aquarius as she finishes up her shadow period post retrograde. Now that she has gone retrograde and she is back in the sign that deals with structure, boundaries, and the third dimensional traditions we have lived our lives by, these things are under review again. There's still that conjunction to Pluto in Aquarius, but we've entered the part of the retrograde cycle for her that has her needing to correct systems that haven't been working in her life, not only in her life, but also in connection. Now, for some, these systems are, of course, mental, for others, emotional, and still for others, this speaks to spiritual patterning, but for all of us. Whatever patterns exist at these higher unseen levels, there's always a third dimensional out picturing. Our 3D lives are a direct reflection of the program of consciousness we've been running emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. So, this review for some is going to be about housing, for others, work, for many, the body, our first home. And still for others, this review is going to be about the boundaries and rules that we use to negotiate our lives in the sector of our chart where this is happening personally. So pay attention to ruptures and reviews for yourself in the sign of Capricorn. Also, you're going to want to pay attention um, to if you count from your sun, how many places Capricorn is from the place of your sun if you use a sunrise chart, because that will also tell you the area of life where this review is ongoing. The breakdowns here are because a review is going to be necessary when it comes to how you hold up your boundaries and the structure of your life in order to upgrade that area to be more aligned with the growth you've done and the new person you're becoming this year. We also see some really important aspects in addition to Pluto. Pluto's doing a lot of the destruction and then reconstruction. We also have this square here from Chiron. This is opening up a bit of grief in the divine feminine energetic fields around things that have been lost. It's interesting, and we'll talk about it in a moment with the lunar questions section of this update. Many people have been reporting to me, hey, there's something different going on in my connection. I no longer feel it in the 5D. And I share with them, yeah, that's supposed to be happening right now, that you're not feeling it in the 5D in the way that you once were. I'm going to get to why that might be in a moment, but one of the things that I can share with this aspect from Chiron is that that absence of fifth dimensional presence is a direct reflection of how where things are headed for you in the third dimension, and not in a bad way. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised to hear what my guides have had to say about it. But in addition to that, a chapter of fifth dimensional connection has come to a close in many ways for many people. And that's actually a great thing. You know, you can't stay pregnant forever. So, however, you may find that post-birth, you have a little postpartum depression, and that's normal. Hormones come out. There's this sort of release of everything that got built up in the fifth dimensional escrow. And so you may find that there's just this little bit of sadness or grief as you let go of all that old period, that old chapter that we're now releasing and closing further. With Chiron in square to Juno there in Capricorn, both in earth signs, Chiron business and work, Taurus money and wealth, or money and value. Some of this restructuring has absolutely nothing to do with the connection for a lot of people. Much of it has to do with like, get your money together. Not just your money, but your job, your career path, your mission work. Make yourself a home in the third dimension for your passions, your purpose, your talent, your gifts. Give them a stable altar upon which you can offer them to the world and the divine. And so, where there's been instability there, the work of the connection at this particular time in the divine feminine energetic fields is to clean that up. Don't wait for a particular time in the connection to do it. The time is indicated as now. For whatever reason, the stability of your connection, the deepening of your connection relies upon your capacity to be third dimensionally enriched, third dimensionally stable, third dimensionally grounded in order for it to come into fuller expression. So, if you're hearing me and you know this is you, yeah, there has been financial insecurity or instability, or there has been like self-worth and value insecurity and instability. I'm not charging enough in my business. I'm not asking for enough money at my job. I need to change jobs, change business partners, whatever the case may be, or I need to start that business. This transit right here is asking you to please get on with it because your connection requires it as part of how your connection stabilizes or deepens if you already identify in some format of union. Okay. So I know some of you are kind of like, oh man, K Moon, that's not what I want to hear. Why isn't it just, we do it together? I don't know why. I just see it in the sky that what's supported is this is the divine feminine's work, the divine masculine is opposite on a whole other journey, which we'll talk about in a moment, which makes for some interesting internal energies for sure. But for those of you who feel your connection in some format of extreme, where they are one energy and you are the other, remember, we all have both. But for reasons, sometimes people express one more than the other. If you are in an extreme of divine feminine energy, you may find that this is your call to action, and this is what you're meant to be acting on right now. Now, we also see a semi-sextile from Lilith there in Sagittarius to Juno. This is one of the best parts of this review period. Lilith in this position will cause us to feel like we can't help but to be in the space of, I'm going to do me, you do you. And that's actually going to be a very liberating thing while the counterparts are in opposition to one another. Because as structures collapse, and they are in the divine feminine energetic fields, as structures collapse, it forces us to recalibrate our compass to our inner true north. Who am I? What do I need? Where am I growing? Where am I stifled? How do I ground? What structures support me? What structures have been taken from me? Lilith in this position forces us to respond from a place of personal truth. Whether we want to or not, it's going to be organic, it will be innate. And as such, it's going to be easier to replace outdated structures with ones that are more personally aligned during this transit. We will also see a sextile to Nessus in Pisces at that 22nd degree. So Nessus has chimed in on her conversation. This is also a great benefit to us because there'll be a small obsession with getting it right in our energy. And with Lilith in the position she's in to the divine feminine energies, this is going to be about personally showing up congruent and aligned with who we really are, both in connection and in our lives, in a way that supports aligned connection with another from a spiritually aligned place. That's Nessus in Pisces. And a third dimensionally aligned place, that's Juno in Capricorn. So literally like the structure of our life has to work. And then an intellectually aligned place, that's Lilith in Sagittarius. So each one of these is playing its part to make sure that authenticity is the baseline for alignment for union. No hiding self, no repressing self, no twisting or pretzeling self, just true self. The foundation is unshakable here if we operate in those ways now. Okay, so I like to see that. Also, other aspects we have going on, there's a square coming in from Pallas, that's Pallas, Eris here, Vesta here, and Chiron here. Neat little Aries stellium giving Juno a square. This facilitates a real dedication to not doing things the same old way with that combination. It's an active, because Aries is the sign of action, response to systems that haven't worked. And I love this for us. This square makes it so that we can't ignore where we've been allowing non-working identity stories to prop up a structure in our lives that we've outgrown because we've outgrown the story. So let me give you some examples. You may have outgrown a story about being rejected. And so the ongoing silence between you and your counterpart becomes uncomfortable to the point where you break it as you realize you're not rejected. That was just a story you were living while your counterpart was working through poverty or other personal challenges. So all of the behaviors, that's Aries, actions of rejection, that's Eris and Chiron, all the rejection stuff. All of those pieces no longer feel comfortable to live inside of and act from. That's the discomfort in this square saying, hey, it's no longer authentic action to take to to, pout or whine or throw stink bombs in the connection to get attention because I don't feel like I'm getting enough validation. This is where you're gonna go from, okay, I recognize that story is an old story. I've outgrown it. What actions do I need to take that are going to be more aligned for allowing me to have what I need and what I want based on who I really am? Likewise, maybe you've outgrown a story of being irrelevant at work. And now all the staying quiet in meetings, all the picking up slack for people you thought were more important and not asking for your due. This no longer feels good to you. It's uncomfortable. Squares make us uncomfortable to drive new behaviors. This square is cajoling us to speak up for ourselves, stop doing other people's work for them, let them carry their own weight at work. Consequences be what they may. Ultimately, that is going to you no longer acting out of alignment with yourself, then creates a domino effect that facilitates alignment for everyone. The people you're carrying at work, maybe they get fired and they find a job that's better aligned for them. The company itself no longer has an overburdened, overworked, overwhelmed you. You get to be more resourced, and maybe you even get a promotion because you now get visibility that you didn't have before when you were hiding. So, this is what I'm talking about. It's about paying attention to where there is discomfort with things you've always done in relationships of all kinds because you've outgrown the identity or role you've always played. That's the Aries component. And thus, the structure of that identity or world, that's Juno in Capricorn, is in the midst of collapse. Okay. So this may start with a little projection. I want to be honest here. That's something I'm definitely seeing play out in people's realities as I'm talking to them in Star Club. There's a little bit of projection going on in different circumstances where people are feeling wronged or like someone else owes them something. But really, what's here is just people recognizing, you know what? I've been living a life and a story that then solidified into a pattern. And all stories about myself can be changed. They don't have to stay my reality. Okay. And as Juno retrogrades in the sign of structures, these patterns come into review for either keeping or discarding. It sounds like heavy work, but because of the way Lilith, who likes to do things her way, is sextiling Juno and really kind of bumping straight into her and saying, hey, you don't have any choices but to do it the way you want to do it. This is actually going to make that easier. Trying to pretzel yourself, to ignore yourself, that's what's actually going to make this transit hard. Okay. So wanted to make sure that I spoke to that. We also see a trine to Juno from Uranus here in Gemini. Change, change, change. This is where there is immediate change available in connection. So last year and early this year, I remember telling our community we needed to be prepared for things to change overnight and for people to change overnight in connections. That even you and your own identity and way of showing up could change overnight. This plus the upcoming Venus retrograde. We start shadow on August 31st, but the retrograde is in September, post shadow in October. These are moments where that change can begin to happen at lightning speed. Things can turn around in one way or another without warning, just by a simple choice. So, where you're being guided to make thought or behavioral changes, This is the moment to do it. Don't hesitate. Do not delay. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Make it happen now. Don't wait for later. It's now. It's yesterday. This is the moment. Especially because with the Saturn trine to the eclipse energy, changes that we make in our identity and the way we show up now actually have the capacity to solidify longer term. Okay. So try to do something different. Surprise yourself. You're actually going to find that it works really well. Now, what's also interesting here is that we see Venus also in trine to Juno, while simultaneously being in trine over here to Uranus. So I think this is going to be fascinating. This is going to align commitment with emotion, where people, those who've been in connections where they have been feeling split when it comes to where their connection is in the 5D versus the 3D. This is the moment where you can use your mind to get aligned with Venus in Libra and also Juno reviewing the structures of the way things have unfolded thus far. This is a major season of divine feminine correction. These corrections are part of something my guide shared would be happening back in the early parts of 2026, where they said there would be a collapse of toxic masculinity from the divine masculine fields and then a reverb through the divine feminine fields after that. And the reverb is opening up soon, and some of you are already feeling it early, where your own inner toxicity rears its head so it can die out. And so I want to kind of speak to that before I move on from this point, because I'm seeing some of that show up like almost across the board, like unilaterally across the board in feminine spaces, even where the feminine energy here has maybe more divine masculinity to them than divine femininity. I am seeing a way in which people are letting their emotions get the best of them. And across the board, just being ready to do way too much, almost taking on the other person's work instead of resting in the feminine energy of let me just work on my structures and make my structures the safe place for my work and gifts, trusting that the union energies are going to unfold. They're already in motion. I don't have to push this. I don't have to work that hard on this at this point. I'm seeing a lot of overworking in feminine spaces. And so I'm sharing this because the overworking is what's causing a lot of fatigue. And these planets are telling me you don't have to do all that work on the connection. Truly, if you identify in divine feminine energy, the work right now is truly just on the structures of your own life, your business, your money, your housing, your job, your career, whatever it is structurally that you know needs to get dealt with so that your third dimensional reality can support whatever the next step in your union is. For some of you, it's moving in together. For others of you, it's getting married, those already married and living together. For some of you, this is about having a child, and your body is just not ready. It's not going to be able to withstand that, or your finances aren't ready. You can't support a child and yourself at this time. Much of the work at this moment is not in dealing with the other person, it's in dealing with self if you identify as divine feminine. And so I share that to say if you're in the process of putting down the spiritual work of the connection, you're not doing it wrong. In fact, you're right on track for where you're supposed to be at this moment. But I understand how scary that can be if you've been used to living a fifth dimensional connection that's now trying to push into third dimensional reality. Letting go of the stage of building the plans with the architect and all of those ongoing meetings so that you can now actually let construction begin. It's a change. It's a difference. It's something new. And so where sometimes it can feel really uncertain when, you're not talking to that architect every single day, only to then find yourself in the circumstance of having to just trust the builders are on site, they're taking care of your foundation, they're putting in, the drywall, etc., etc. If you keep doing your third dimensional work, not the fifth dimensional parts, you don't need to do any more unless you want to and it feels good to you. Meditation, sending healing, especially if that's gotten heavy for you. It's heavy because it's misaligned for right now. It's heavy because different kind of work is supported right now. Doing the right work at the wrong time is tiring. Put it down. Doing the correct work at the correct time is actually energizing. Pick it up. Okay, so I really wanted to make sure I shared that, especially as Juno is backing into Capricorn here. She's going to be here for another couple of months until she comes out of retrograde shadow and gets back into Aquarius and starts to deal with people in the world and communities again. But right now, the structures of your life need your attention. And for some of you, that straight up is like your health. My guides told me, they were like, look, Juno and Pluto talking, gonna surface hormonal reproductive health issues for many people. Make sure they know to see a doctor when it comes up. The number of things that have just shown up out of the blue this year for so many of my clients on that front. Please, if you're the third dimension is like begging for all of our attention in one way or another. So I'm going to invite you to give it your full attention because that is the work for union at this particular time. Okay, so moving on. That's a bit of the Venusian component, lots of change going on in relationship. Venus in Libra speaking to Uranus, both of them speaking to Juno down there in Capricorn. This is that opportunity to realign yourself to the work that needs to be happening in present time. And it's going to look different than it may have looked before. So utilize your mind to get into alignment, and to give yourself permission to be in a different space. It's okay that the connection has evolved. It's supposed to. Okay, now let's take a look at a square to Haumea in Scorpio for Juno. This square is the beginning of a longer period of the fight for personal resurrection for the divine feminine energy, where you may want to phoenix, feel ready to phoenix, but the cost is going to be a death or an ending, giving something up, releasing something or letting something go that you don't feel ready to do in the structures of your life. So, for example, you may be realizing you need to move or give up your home, and maybe you don't feel ready to. And this causes tension because it's a vital step in your phoenix process, maybe even a necessary step in the deepening of union process, because maybe it would give you more financial freedom or financial flexibility to relocate. But emotionally, the cost is going to be something that you're not yet feeling ready to pay. Or maybe you are. In all cases, there is a rebirth here because of Haumea's position and the way Uranus is speaking in harmony to Juno there. The opportunity for rebirth is on the table, but that rebirth will be preceded by an ending or a death. And it's going to matter that you're willing to honor that, to honor what has to be released. Okay. Now, what's interesting here is now the final aspect for Juno is where she's also in conversation with Jupiter, the divine masculine energy, in opposition. And then there's Mercury connected to Jupiter. There's Pluto connected to her. Okay. Oppositions aren't bad, but oppositions do mean that energies have to be balanced. They're being on the same page isn't exactly what's happening here. So a lot of grace, a lot of flexibility, a lot of understanding needs to be applied. Patience is necessary. Now, from Juno's perspective, having a conversation in opposition with Mercury and Jupiter there, this is where there can be challenge mentally trying to invest in deepening the connection for some or getting on the same page for others. This is an important transit for open-mindedness and a live and let live approach, keeping conversations open rather than stressing finality or looking for immediate conclusions, especially with Venus and Mercury retrograde coming. There are bound to be new pieces of information that arise in the next 90 days that change any final decisions made now. Okay. Further, now if we take this energy from Jupiter's side, Jupiter conjunct Mercury in opposition to Juno Pluto. This is an expansion of consciousness that speaks to potential and possibility, optimism, and good feelings. This is a great transit for our divine masculine energies after a period of mid-year heaviness that have and are continuing to generate a lot of ego death as Jupiter has opposed Pluto and then also squared Chiron here. This right here marks a turning point that allows us to lift up our head and see potential and possibility again. Now, for our inner energy collectively, this is where we may find we are at odds with ourselves. We are in opposition with ourselves. A part of us may be ready to dig in and do deeper structural work, while another part of us is ready to be optimistic, maybe take it easy, maybe deal, a little bit, want to lick our wounds a little bit if there was some deeper corrective stuff that went down this year for our ego, okay? A part of you may really need to put down the heaviness and the working for the connection and start to pick up the focus on working for your third dimension to hold the connection. Your connection, what this can mean outside of your inner energy, this is where you may find that it's hard for you and your counterpart to get on the same page in the third dimension. Now, if you both manifest in extremes of divine masculine or divine feminine energy, one of you may be ready to do, well, where are we at conversations, while the other one is needing to do, I need to fix my life and myself conversations. While one person is fixing their foundation, inner or outer world, it is kind of hard for them to contribute simultaneously to a connection or relationship when they're figuring out their own survival or health or family drama stuff. So I wanted to make sure that I spoke to that here because that jointly, yes, they're in communication with each other, but they're having very different experiences in the third dimension at present time. And so it's going to really serve you to balance this within yourself first, where there needs to be some correction, maybe a little bit of ego death, and then some working on your third dimensional structures to reality. that's really going to serve you well concerning this particular transition into the next stage of union energies. So let's take a look at the lunar question for this week. This week's lunar question comes from a member of Star Club who has something really insightful that I wanted to highlight for our community as a whole. She said, I heard you talk a few times about how twin flames are losing their spiritual gifts. Not sure how you worded it, but I would describe it that way for myself. I've noticed it since me and my person have become more and more of a couple. Synchronicities and sudden intuitive hits were very strong beforehand and only seem to come up on occasion when there's an issue between us or when things seem like they're going off track, but they're rare. I'm wondering if they're gone forever or is this just a season? Great question. I am so glad you asked. Here's what I will say about this. So I don't think I would use the phrasing um, lose their gifts, but I understand how you would describe it that way for yourself. As one of the interesting things about the way this is all unfolding for all of us collectively is that, we have this ongoing experience of wanting union, or cultivating union, but we've cultivated in the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is not where your connection is meant to stay. And the fifth connection is the place where you get to have all of those, we build up all of those synchronicities. It's the place where we build up all of those experiences of magic and mystery. And they're the things that let us know the connection is active, alive, and well when it is in the place of gestation. But just like when a baby gets born, what's actually happening is after the birth, you don't get to still experience the child kicking inside. You get to experience the child outside of the body. And so the signs and all the things that you got while the child was inside of the body, they're not there on the outside. Instead, on the outside, now you get to have the experiences, of that sweet smell of like baby head. I don't know what it's called. I think there's like a technical name for it that people have when they say, oh, my baby's head smells so sweet. But you also get the scent of baby poop. And this is just life in the third dimension. When things come into the third dimension, it is a different season. It is the season of chop wood and carry water. What comes with having physical bodies is the need for shelter, food, and water. And so now we have to do things like pay bills and figure out who's going to clean the laundry versus who's going to do the dishes. And as much as, the magic of the fifth dimensional union components is very magical. It's so much fun. It came with counterparts physical absence. Now we're in this season where the energies are supporting uh, physical presence. And so the work right now really is in the third dimensional stuff. And this is what you've already seen here. There's an issue between us, or things feel like they're maybe a little bit off track. That's rarer. That all of the sudden intuitive hits and the synchronicities line up with these things because these things are rare. You're in the physical third dimensional experience of the union. Now you get to have the person in the 3D, but all of the magic, all of the mystery, yeah, they fart, they belch, you know, they stink up the bathroom in the morning, or they leave their, shaved beard hairs in your sink. You get that part too. And so I think this is why my guides, and they're now whispering in my ear, yes, that is why they encouraged me to tell you from early on this channel that stuff is great, but it is not the point of the connection. Don't get so caught up in the magic and the mystery that you forget that at the end of the day, you are physical matter and they are physical matter. And what you're working for and generating here is a way to make both of your matters matter in the same place at the same time. So that's the answer to that one. I thought it would be a nice one for this community to hear the answer to. Thank you so much for writing this one in, Jay. I really appreciated the insightful observation here that the third dimensional experience is not going to be the fifth dimensional experience, and that's not a bad thing. It's just an is thing. And if you want to stay in 5D, you can send the man back, put him back in the 5D. See, if you liked having the magic, go for it. And it's not to say that your life won't be magical. It's just going to be a different type of magic now that the two of you are walking in the third dimension. You don't need confirmation of his presence because he's physically absent. What you need is to actually enjoy his physical presence, knowing that the spiritual pieces did what they were supposed to do when they were supposed to do them. Okay, so let's come on back here to the new moon solar eclipse. I want to talk to you guys about what's going on in the divine masculine energetic fields here, so that you know what to expect next. Because I feel like many of you are I'm watching a lot of people who would have previously identified themselves as divine feminine because they happen to be in a female gendered body or a female identified body, actually have a lot of experiences aligned with the divine masculine work at this period of time. So let's get into it. We have a sextile for Jupiter from Venus and Make here in Libra. And I think this is going to be a super important piece that we need to observe as Venus prepares to go retrograde. She will go retrograde at the tail end of this month. Well, she'll enter the retrograde zone on August 31st. Then she'll remain retrograde in October. She'll go out of shadow, or sorry, September. She'll go out of shadow in October. The Venus retrograde is its own sort of animal this year. I want to just take a moment to pause and talk about it because it's one of several, actually many retrogrades that are going to happen all at the same time. And many of them will be very impactful for Jupiter, our divine masculine energy, mainly because like all of the planets are going to go retrograde at the same time in a way I haven't seen them do before. So take a quick look here. This is a retrograde timeline of the year. You'll see all the planets aligned over here on the left. If you're in Star Club, you already have a copy of this. And then you'll see where we are now here in August. This is an energy here that's letting us know, check this out. So much retrogrades happening before we close the year. This period between August and December, But specifically, if we look a little bit closer at October, everything is retrograde nearly at the same time. The only thing that is kind of out of the fray is going to be Jupiter, our divine masculine energy, which means Jupiter will be feeling the majority of this, as he's the only one that's not necessarily retrograde. Now, Jupiter will be in shadow um, for a large chunk, starting back here, late September, early October. But as a result of everything else being retrograde and many of these other planets talking to Jupiter back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, while they are retrograde, the energy in the divine masculine fields is about to come into a sharp review period. I mentioned that this was going to be a very corrective period of time. Certain ego deaths going on mid-year. We're coming into the point where that's peaking and then going to start to gentle just a little bit. But if this is something that you're like, okay, yeah, I am already feeling this call to review, this call to return, the reoccurrence of the past, needing to rectify, needing to correct things from my past, then I want to invite you to join me inside of Star Club for a special conversation. I'm going to be doing some 2026 retrograde prep. I know this is only half of the year. The reason I held it until now, as you saw, is the retrograde dense part of the year where everything is retrograde starts now. And I want you to be prepared what to expect, how to work on it, how to work with it, what you need to do, what's going to be relevant for your life and your chart and your connection, rather than waiting for these energies to hit and then feeling blindsided by them. You can actually direct them. And so this live event will be this Thursday, August 13th from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Don't worry if you can't be live. There will be a recording provided. That recording will live in the Star Club member area, and you will get access to it for 4 days, 3 days after the live event, and then it expires unless you join Star Club. The ticket for this retrograde class is going to be $22. Once you get in, you're also going to be able to receive this retrograde guide. The retrograde guide is 27 pages, and it is a deeper conversation with every key date, every shadow period, every meaning of a retrograde planet, but then the specific themes of that retrograde for this year, because it's not the same every year. It's different based on the conversations that those planets are having during their retrograde. So I break it all down in this 27-page guide, which you do get when you join the 2026 retrograde class. The link to join is below, and we're going to be live on Thursday. And if you join the retrograde class and you're not a member of Star Club, you can take that 22 USD and apply it to your Stellium membership in Star Club, which gets you access to the full content library, lifetime access, as well as monthly events. You also get live Q&A opportunities with me, as well as an amazing community. If you've ever wondered where these lunar questions come from each month, they come from our Star Club members. I answer their questions both in the member forum, but also during live events, and I'd love for you to be there. Link to join the retrograde prep class is below this video. But I wanted to make sure I shared that with you because Venus, who is in aspect with Jupiter, is going to go into shadow at the end of August. And so there are some themes that if you want to work them through in relationship now through your divine masculine energetic fields, the harmony between Jupiter and Venus, as well as Uranus and Venus and Jupiter, is huge. It's a beautiful way of being able to step onto a new timeline in connection. Pluto can also be quite helpful here, but it is a matter of not letting ego get the best of you if you're wanting to work that through. Okay, so some of these things we're going to talk about during that retrograde class, and I wanted to make sure I invited you. The recording will be there, like I said, for about 4 days. It expires on the 17th. If you don't want to join Star Club, you have 4 days after the live event to listen, and you get the guide either way. Okay, so this is going to open up a bit of a softness in our divine masculine energy, but also a huge desire there for change, a huge desire there for moving things forward, getting things into alignment, and like I said, a lot of correction, a lot of growth. And so I think this is going to be very inspiring for us. It's also going to be a very passionate energy in our divine masculine fields. And I think that's going to be very useful at this time of the year before everything goes retrograde. This is sort of the last call for big changes energy. If you know you've got something that you've wanted to get done in relationship or connection, now's the time to do it. We also see a square from Haumea to Jupiter there. That same square Juno was experiencing gives a very similar message in our divine masculine energetic fields that a resurrection is available if we're willing to let something go, since she's traveling through the sign of endings. So if you felt that there is something you know you need to let go of because it's holding up your connection's ability to deepen or your ability to get in better alignment with your counterpart, now's the time. Things that come to mind include, I don't know, addiction, backdoors to exes, habits with money that don't serve you, health issues that you've been hiding and avoiding. Letting go of those sorts of patterns can make the room that you need for the connection to land. Okay. So we also see that Jupiter is in trine to Neptune and Saturn. So that's really fun, very corrective. I feel like I keep using that word corrective. If anyone doesn't know what I mean by that, definitely put it in the comments and I'll make sure I answer that. But definitely corrective in the way that it's cleaning up themes of self-betrayal. It's cleaning up options and opportunities to operate out of alignment in our ways of being with other people and moving forward with ourselves. So this is where we just find we can't fake it and we can't force it anymore with Saturn and Neptune and trine to Jupiter. And that's going to be a real benefit to people who have found that they're in relationships that are past their expiration date and they've got a counterpart on hold and a dead marriage that they keep dragging behind them. I sometimes see a lot of that. Other people are going to find that this is where, if you know you have truly been told a bajillion times, you need to start that business, you need to own your creativity, you need to work that talent. If you have been avoiding that, this is where avoiding that just becomes unignorable any longer. Okay. Um, if there is, especially because of the way Chiron is also by square, speaking to Jupiter, if there is, things of the ego that need correction in connection and in life too. I spoke to this a bit earlier in the lunar update for light workers, but definitely here as well. If there are egoic things that need to be corrected in the connection. Chiron and Pluto and Saturn here all speaking to Jupiter. They're going to do it. And so again, I've been seeing a lot of this unfold in people who think that they're divine feminine, but just because they're in a female body and they want to identify at that extreme. But what's actually happening is their inner divine masculine work is showing up and saying, hey, your ego is way too involved in carrying the connection. Put it down. Let spirit do its corrective work here. You do your work on your third dimensional reality, and then allow this to unfold and reshape and reconfigure in aligned ways. And so, where there's been overreach and you've been taking on too much of your counterpart's work, this is going to correct that. Where there's been underdoing it and you haven't been showing up in your connection at all in the ways that spirit has been prompting you to, this is where that's going to get real heavy and real corrective real quick. You're going to start to feel either the shame or the guilt. You'll also be feeling some of the grief around absenteeism and running. None of this is bad. It's just to help things get into alignment in the third dimension. You'll find the universe is very heavy-handed right now in these connections for those of you who have chosen a union path. Okay. This is also going to force dealing with the chironic piece, dealing with deeper abandonment and rejection wounds, and the main ones for the divine masculine being self-abandonment and rejection. She has the same ones that she needs to deal with on her side, but the work is different. On the divine feminine energy side, this has to do with self-esteem, body, structures, and money. On the divine masculine energetic side, this has to do with self-esteem and identity. Who am I in the world? What's my value in the world? Who am I to myself? What's my value to myself? Where external validation is needed to make things move forward, the call on his side will be to self-validate, and circumstances are going to arise to remind you of how important it is to not place validation needs on other people, but instead to start within. So big growth on both sides of the connection. Now let's take a look at Uranus and Gemini, also sextiling Jupiter, our divine masculine energy there. Again, similar conversations with Uranus for divine masculine as divine feminine. Uranus is wanting to bring change for both counterparts and pull them into greater alignment with self and with each other, open their minds, open communication, have different types of communication than you've ever had before. As this starts to unfold, this does change what's available in the timeline for both counterparts. Two paths will be open for both counterparts. It's going to be up to you which you choose by aligning with yourself first and thus allowing the connection to follow. Okay. We have a semi-sextile to Mars in Cancer, who is conjunct Ceres for Jupiter, the same way we have a semi-sextile from Lilith, who is in Sagittarius, speaking to Juno. Anytime we have these semi-sextiles coming from behind, pushing ahead inside of the receiving planet's energy, what I find very interesting is that it causes a bit of a knee-jerk reaction inside of the receiving planet's energy. And what I mean by that is these are so close, but also in a blind spot that you can't help but be responsive to them, even if you don't mean to. Consider if you were driving down the highway and someone's following behind you way too close. You are responsive to the person behind you, who's riding your tail, even though you can't see everything they're doing because they're so close behind you. And so, with that said, Mars series speaks to action and closure that's based on emotions there from the sign of Cancer, um, pushing into the divine masculine energetic fields, forcing the hand of action toward closure at this time. Now, for some, that's going to be perfect. You've needed to close out a pattern for a long time. Emotionally, you've been ready. You just needed the push, the oomph, the impetus. This little transit here is going to bring it. And for others, this is going to feel reactionary. Like maybe you didn't get what you want or what you needed. The Chiron piece just felt a little too triggery at this particular new moon solar eclipse. And you just shut down because the validation you wanted wasn't there. And now we're in a period of a bit of ego correction. So take it as it comes, pay attention to your own patterns, and give yourself some grace, but don't give yourself wiggle room to revert and go back to what really should be dead and gone and over. Instead, give yourself wiggle room to experiment and try to do the new thing, become the new version of yourself. You'll find that it's well rewarded at this Leo new moon solar eclipse. Thank you all so much for your likes, subscribes, your watches, and your shares. Thank you for sharing your stories in the comments. They help other people feel less alone, and it illuminates the pathway and how some of this energy can express itself, because it is going to be unique for every single person listening. If you're joining me inside of Star Club, I look forward to chatting with you this Thursday for our 2026 retrograde class. Like I said, it's 22 USD, and you will have the opportunity to apply that 22 USD to a Stellium membership in Star Club that gets you lifetime access, as well as an access to the whole library of Star Club content about all the things that have happened earlier this year and where we're headed in the future months of this year, plus a live and vibrant community and the opportunity to ask me questions live and in person multiple times a month. I can't wait to see you all there. I'm looking forward to continuing to grow with you. And the link to join will be just below this video. Take great care and bye for now.